Hey, what's shaking? It's Alex Greenwood, host of PR After Hours here on Anchor FM. I've been podcasting off and on since 2006, and I've got to tell you something. Back in the old days when it was all stone knives and bear skins and a string and Dixie cups, podcasting was a real challenge. Fast forward to today, and it's still got a lot of challenges, especially for folks who don't have time to set up a home studio or go to a studio or things like that. So I found Anchor FM and I love it, love it, love it for how easy it is to create my own podcast here on this channel called PR After Hours. I love how you can put everything together so simply right from your desktop or your phone. And there's so many great creation tools that allow you to record and edit your pod right there. And I just can't recommend that part alone enough. Also, though, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from this too with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. That's the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And we'll see you back at PR After Hours. Welcome back to PR After Hours. I'm your virtual cocktail maker and shaker of PR, marketing, and business management advice. I'm coming at you at least once a week to give you some news and tips that might help you more effectively promote and grow your business or organization. I really appreciate you being here, and we're always happy to introduce you not only to my tips and my experiences, but my interviews with professionals from all walks of life that might be helpful to you. Today is no different. Today, I have an excerpt from an interview I do on another show called Mysterious Goings On, which is more of a long-form interview show, and there'll be a link in the show notes if you're interested. But the interview is with Mike Hulsey, an accountant. And before you go, oh my gosh, an accountant, think about this. Mike Hulsey is not only an accountant, but he's an accountant who works with cannabis dispensaries in the state of Oklahoma. He helps them start their businesses, manage their books, pay their taxes, the whole Megillah. He does that, and he's quickly becoming Oklahoma's cannabis accountant. Well, I have a couple of snippets from my recent interview with him on Mysterious Goings On here for you. And in those interviews, Mike talks a little bit about some general tips for freelancers or contractors, and I think these might be helpful to you, even if you're just looking at doing a side hustle. There's a couple of nice tips here that might be helpful. So we're going to get started right now with a tip from Mike on PR After Hours. Let me ask you a question. Since Mysterious Goings On, we have a lot of listeners who are in that vein that you already brought up, writers and photographers and maybe just in general freelance type folks or people who maybe have a day job but are trying to have a side hustle that is creative.
Right.
What do you tell them to do? Is there, and I understand you're not giving legal advice, but is there general advice you throw out there about how to set yourself up if you're a freelance writer or a freelance photographer or a graphic artist or something like that? What do you normally tell people like that?
Certainly. And that's a great question because, again, I look at their overall goal. What do you want to do? Is this what you want to do and just keep this on, just get it to the point where you don't have to work your day job, but that's all you're doing is working, by yourself as a freelancer? And if that's the case, then I'll say, look, you don't really have to do anything. You consider yourself in business, have a name, and you're going to tax wise. And I'm not giving legal advice. I'm giving advice from the accounting standpoint of organization. And that what I say is don't spend a lot of money. Don't go to a lawyer and spend thousands of dollars trying to incorporate all of that because you don't need to. The structure in the United States is set up to where you can go into business for yourself just right off the bat. And you don't have to do anything really. I do recommend an accountant for the end of the year stuff, for the solopreneur is kind of how I talk. But because there are a lot of things in there involved which you need to be aware of as far as business expenses, revenues, how you file, things like that. TurboTax is a great software, especially if you're only a W-2 employee, but it's a little more complicated when you're doing your own business. And even though you don't have a corporation or you don't worry about, having a partnership or an S corp, you still need some help in just identifying what those tax regulations are that are governing your business.
So you don't need an LLC necessarily?
You don't necessarily need an LLC.
can you give us like maybe is there a mini checklist? If you're, let's say these are freelancers, let's just call them freelancers. They're writers, photographers, anybody who's listening to this show who is creative and would like to maybe try to make a little side hustle on the creative stuff. What's the checklist? I mean, you already kind of said don't worry about anything, but I mean, you got to worry about a few things, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That was simplified. First thing, if you're going to have a business, recognize the fact that you're going to have a business. That's the first thing. Don't just say, I'll go out and write this thing and see if I can sell it. Just commit yourself to it, whether it be an hour or, an hour a week, whatever it's going to be. It doesn't matter, but commit yourself to that business. Have a name, whatever that name is, to identify that business. So it's singled out and separate from your person that goes to bars and makes friends. And then second thing, once you get that name, go get yourself a bank account. Now, the bank account doesn't have to be in that name because then you've got to go form a name with the county or with the state. But go get yourself a bank account that's at least separate, it can be in your own name, but that you use only for that business. And that's, to me, the most important starting point for any business. Doesn't matter how small. Keep everything separate in that account. That way, at the end of the year, your financials are done. All you have bank account statements, and that tells you exactly what you need to know.
Yeah, and there's a threshold where with the federal government at least, where you go from being a hobbyist to an actual growing concern.
Sure, 3 years of losses.
3 is that? Well,
that's exactly right.
Well, I've been in business for
the
a long
IRS
time.
will give you 3 years of losses before you need to turn a profit, and at that point they'll consider it, or can consider it, a hobby, because you can't take a loss forever against your other income.
Yeah, because if that was the case, people would just take losses on a bunch of stuff just for a tax shelter or whatever you call it, right? Okay. So you're saying, even just a simple checking account or a cheap checking account, I guess, or
there's lots of free checking accounts out there.
Just get one of those, and you're saying, let's say it's an author. Let's say they're self-publishing. Make sure that all of your royalties you get from Kindle, let's say, which you get you accrue on a monthly basis, they go right in there. Right. So there's your profits. But also you put all of your expenses, like if you do marketing expenses or you pay a book cover artist or a editor, that all goes in the mix, right? But you're saying you got your books there, right there, with just by running it all through there. That's a great tip. I wish I thought of that.
Stayed with it and use that exclusively for your business. Don't mix it with your personal income.
Well, I hope you found those tips useful. I enjoyed the conversation with Mike, and that conversation will be available for download from Mysterious Goings on Thursday. I think that's February 20th, and I hope you'll listen to the whole show. He and I have a history together beyond just this interview, and we have a nice time catching up a little bit. So just as a little update for you on me, I am really excited to tell you that I'll be speaking about crisis communications at several venues coming up, which is something that I'm very invested in. So there'll be a lot more of that on the website. I'll let you know in coming weeks when we have all those dates put down. But I wanted to let you know that those talks are coming up here in the Kansas City area mostly. But I am available to come on the road and speak about communications and crisis communications in particular to your company or organization or conference. Just get a hold of me through this podcast or through alexgpr.com. Happy to make arrangements to travel to come speak to you. Just, of course, got to cover my travel and a little bit of my expenses, and we can make that happen. So until next time we meet, I hope you enjoyed this brief cocktail and gave you some food for thought as you move forward in your business enterprises. So until next time, the bar is closed.